And we're rolling. Hi everyone, Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Merry Christmas if you're into that sort of thing. Today is December 25th, 2020. The year's coming quickly to an end. Also, if you're into that sort of thing, I will be doing a New Year's Gongyo. That is a traditional thing amongst many sects of Buddhism. It's just another day in a way, but I think it's important in a regular time period to observe our development as human beings as we continue to recommit ourselves to an excellent life, to being, in my case, to being a good man. And certainly for ladies out there, you too work diligently, as we all do every day, to improve ourselves, to be the best we can be. And if you're a Buddhist, practicing Buddhist, that's our ultimate goal, is it not? All right, so now before I continue with the true aspect of all phenomena, I want to take a moment to remind you why this is. I certainly expressed in the last video how important this Gosho is to my own practice. But I want to take a moment to explain why it is, in fact, a special Gosho. Nichiren wrote this to a very close student of his, a disciple, if you will. Both of them were exiled to Sado Island at the time. This is how they met. Sarenbo, the recipient of this letter, this Gosho, was an ex-Tendai priest who had converted, or head monk, who had converted to Nichiren's teachings. And so this was special to Nichiren, not only because he was converting a senior monk, and all of the education and experience that comes with was a very important convert, because this person would then be not only in the inner circle, as I would say, of Nichiren, but also somebody readily prepared to spread, propagate the teachings, was already doing so as a Tendai priest, but now, I keep saying priest, but you see how we get used to certain words, right? I'm just as guilty of it. But this was somebody who would be quite an important ally and co-teacher for Nichiren. So it was really key for Nichiren when he shared time with Sarenbo, that he gave him critical information, very eye-opening stuff about his own enlightenment in the teachings, because Sarenbo would take on the mantle of Nichiren when he was teaching other monks, not just lay people. So this was a very important relationship to Nichiren, and consequently, this Gosho and others like it contain very concise insights into Buddhism, which gives us something much less couched in all the stories and the expedient means, right? Because Nichiren takes for granted this is a senior Tendai monk. He knows all this stuff. Nichiren studied it as well. So Nichiren always has kind of a special place, if you will, for his respect for Tendai himself, Chiche, and the teachings that came from him through other scholars like Dengyo and so forth. So he doesn't really bat around the bush at all, because he knows his student in this case is going to get it. This student has a background, if you will, and an understanding, a profound understanding of the Lotus Sutra and its teachings, and is now expanding those to Nichiren's insights and enlightenment. So we get the benefit of that. We get very concise, very direct information. We don't have to sift through a lot of language to get to the point. And I find this exciting. To me, this particular Gosho is more contemporary in a way, because it's not obfuscated by all manners of trying to respect previous expedient means and using them and so forth. This is his student in this letter is quite well versed on all that, so he doesn't have to I don't want to say waste time, but he doesn't have to include so much background. It's already assumed. And so now as I share it with you, I'm assuming you too have a lot of background, if from nowhere else, my videos. So I'll get right back into it here. But he continues along this line of Buddha is this life state that we all have and share. And he's explaining it to Sarenbo as somebody who has a profound understanding of the true nature of all aspects of all phenomena, of which we are, certainly. But he's adding his own insights to help Sarenbo understand it through Nichiren's insights. Make sense? I think I'm repeating myself now, so I'm going to get right back into the Gosho. Okay, so the last thing we said in that paragraph was, on the contrary, it is common mortals who endow him with the three virtues, identifying where and who the Buddha is, right? So he continues, the thus come one is explained clearly in Tendai's commentary as follows. Now, why does he use Tendai's commentary? Because he's talking to an ex-Tendai head monk, teacher. So he's using something familiar to him to share this insight. Quote, the thus come one is a general designation for the Buddhas of the 10 directions and the 3 existences. So the term we hear Shakyamuni, we hear the thus come one, we hear world honored one, we hear all these different titles for what we're led to believe in the expedient means is Shakyamuni Buddha. But in fact, that's missing some subtle differentiations. So Tendai points out that when we use the term thus come one, what we're using is a designation, a general designation for the Buddhas of the 10 directions and the 3 existences, for the 2 Buddhas, the 3 Buddhas, the true Buddha, and provisional Buddhas. So there it is again, another way of saying that the thus come one is our awakening. To thus come one is to awaken to our essential Buddha nature, which is in all of the expedient means Buddhas, emanations, whatever you want to call them. All of them are the result of the correct practice of the one vehicle. They are the enlightenment. Okay? The true Buddha, quote unquote, here means common mortals. I'm going to read that again. The true Buddha here means common mortals, whereas, quote, provisional Buddhas means Buddhas. In other words, the Buddhahood that's available all the time. The true Buddha is you and I, upon our awakening. However, because of page-turning karma. However, because of the difference between ordinary people and Buddhas that stems from the disparity between delusion and enlightenment, ordinary people are unaware that they are endowed with both the entity and the functions of the 3 bodies. So all of this is to say that the only thing in our way of being enlightened beings and living this life fully with that clarity of mind and potential manifestation of our Buddhahood, our Buddha nature, is these delusions of attachments that we get from our lower worlds, the times we spend attached, number one, to self, ego, other, all of that. If you just disconnect ourselves from that, we would all be, as is repeatedly said here, the true Buddha. All phenomena, end quote, quote unquote, in the sutra refers to the 10 worlds and the true aspect to what they actually are. The true aspect is another name for Myoho Renge Kyo. Hence, all phenomena are Myoho Renge Kyo. Hell's displaying the form of hell is its true aspect. When hell changes into the realm of hungry spirits, that is no longer the true form of hell. A Buddha displays the form of a Buddha, and a common mortal that of a common mortal. The entities of all phenomena are entities of Myoho Renge Kyo. That is the meaning of, quote, the true aspect of all phenomena, end quote. Tendai states that the profound principle of the true aspect is the originally inherent Myoho Renge Kyo. This interpretation identifies the phrase, quote, true aspect with the theoretical teaching and the original inherent Myoho Renge Kyo with the essential teaching. You should ponder this interpretation deep in your heart. So that's very important. What he's saying is that all phenomena are of Myoho Renge Kyo, but our common mortal, our true aspect, is that potential to awaken to it. So it's there, but obviously there are veils of understanding that keep us from seeing it. So though it's our true aspect, that does not mean we experience it. However, when we do, then we are in Myoho Renge Kyo, which is ever present, but not perceived by, quote, common mortals, right? Although not worthy of the honor, I, Nichiren, was nevertheless the first to spread the wonderful and difficult to understand law entrusted to Bodhisattva superior practices for propagation in the latter day of the law. I was also the first, though only Bodhisattva superior practices is so empowered, to inscribe the object of devotion as the embodiment of Shakyamuni Buddha from the remote past as revealed in the lifespan chapter. In other words, the Myoho Renge Kyo, the ever-present Buddha-ness, as I've called it. Where did I stop? Okay, embodiment of Shakyamuni Buddha from the remote past as revealed in the lifespan chapter of the essential teaching. Of many treasures Buddha, who appeared in the treasure tower chapter of the theoretical teaching and preached, and of the bodhisattvas of the earth, who arrived with the emerging from the earth chapter. Though people may hate me, they cannot possibly alter the fact of my enlightenment. Therefore, to have exiled me, Nichiren, to this remote island is, I believe, an offense that can never be expiated, even with the passing of countless kalpas. A passage from the simile and parable chapter reads, if I were to describe the punishments that fall on the persons who slander this sutra, I could exhaust a kalpa and never come to the end, end quote. On the other hand, not even the wisdom of the Buddha can fathom the blessings that one will obtain by giving alms to Nichiren and by becoming his disciple and lay supporter. The sutra reads, quote, the benefits he gains thereby will be such that even the Buddha wisdom could never finish calculating their extent, end quote. Nichiren alone took the lead in carrying out the task of the bodhisattvas of the earth. He may even be one of them. If Nichiren, he's talking about himself in the third person here, but this is interesting when you factor in that the person he's addressing this to is an ex-Tendai priest or head monk who is now converted to Nichiren's teachings, and Nichiren is taking some time not only to deepen Sarenbo's understanding of Tendai teachings and now Nichiren's, but also to place, it's a kind of a backwards way of giving Sarenbo a pat on the back for being a courageous Buddhist practitioner and co-teacher by edifying him his own position in the history of Buddhism. But that's what's going on here. Then so must his disciples and lay supporters. The sutra states, quote, if one of these good men or good women in the time after I have passed into extinction is able to secretly expound the Lotus Sutra to one person, even one phrase of it, then you should know that he or she is the envoy of the thus come one. The envoy of the thus come one, not him Shakyamuni, but Buddha-ness, the thus come one, which is within all of us. What we're practicing and chanting and reciting and studying for is to thus become that one, Buddha, the thus come one. He has been dispatched by the thus come one and carries out the thus come one's work. Who else but us can this possibly refer to? You see how this is you and I, buddy. You and I, Sarenbo. This is our mission. We are the bodhisattvas, leaders of the bodhisattvas of the earth. So this is pretty high praise coming from Nichiren, wouldn't you say? When praised highly by others, one feels that there is no hardship one cannot bear. Such is the courage that springs from the words of praise. The votaries born in the latter day of the law who propagate the Lotus Sutra will encounter three types of enemies who will cause them to be exiled and even condemn them to death. Yet Shakyamuni Buddha will enfold his robe, those who nonetheless persevere in propagating. Heavenly gods will make them offerings, support them with their shoulders, and carry them on their backs. They possess great roots of goodness and deserve to be great leaders for all living beings. Thus extolled by Shakyamuni Buddha, many treasures Buddha, all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in the 10 directions, the 7 reigns of the heavenly deities and the 5 reigns of earthly deities, the mother of demon children and the 10 demon daughters, the 4 heavenly kings, Brahma, Shakra, King Yama, the gods of the waters and winds, the gods of the seas and mountains, thus come one Mahavarachana, the Bodhisattvas universal worthy and Manjushri, and the gods of the sun and moon, thus praised by all these honored ones, I, Nichiren, have been able to endure countless harsh trials. When praised, one does not consider one's personal risk, and when criticized, one can recklessly cause one's own ruin. Such is the way of common mortals, unenlightened people. Now, no matter what, strive in resolute mind and conviction, and be known as a votary of the Lotus Sutra, and remain my disciple for the rest of your life. If you are of the same mind as Nichiren, you must be a bodhisattva of the earth. And if you are a bodhisattva of the earth, there is not the slightest doubt that you have been a disciple of Shakyamuni Buddha from the remote past. In other words, you have access to the same enlightenment, the same Buddha-ness as Shakyamuni, the founder of this religion or this philosophy or this practice, more accurately, achieved. That's what being a follower of Shakyamuni Buddha from the remote past means, is that same Buddha-ness is now accessible to you. It just remains to be achieved through your own resolve, just as I, Nichiren, have. The sutra states, quote, ever since the long distant past, I have been teaching and converting this multitude. In other words, Buddha-ness has been here all along. There should be no discrimination among those who propagate the 5 characters of Myoho Renge Kyo in the latter day of the law, be they men or women. Were they not bodhisattvas of the earth, they could not chant the Daimoku. Again, I remind you that when I have said and I've read that you and I, all of us, are the Sangha, and we are the bodhisattvas of the earth, I get resistance on that every now and again. But you can hear it clearly in Nichiren's own words. If you're practicing Buddhism, you are a bodhisattva of the earth. That's if you, I'll say it again. Were they not bodhisattvas of the earth, they could not chant the Daimoku. Can you chant the Daimoku? Ergo, you are a bodhisattva of the earth. I'm not making this stuff up. At first, only Nichiren chanted Namu Myoho Renge Kyo, but then 2, 3, and 100 followed, chanting and teaching others. Propagation will unfold this way in the future as well. We're doing it now. Does this not signify emerging from the earth? At the time when the law has spread far and wide, the entire Japanese nation will chant Namu Myoho Renge Kyo as surely as an arrow is aimed at the earth cannot miss the target. But now you must build your reputation on the Lotus Sutra and give yourself up to it. At the ceremony in the air, now see, I know he's talking to Saranbo, but he's talking to us, right? You must build your reputation on the Lotus Sutra and give yourself up to it. At the ceremony in the air, when the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions gathered together, the 2 Buddhas, Shakyamuni and many treasures, nodded in agreement. What they decided on was nothing other than the reputation or the perpetuation of the law throughout the latter day. Many treasures Buddha had offered Shakyamuni Buddha a place beside him, and when they unfurled the banner of Myoho Renge Kyo, the 2 leaders of the entire multitude made their decision together. Could there have been anything false in their decision? Their ultimate purpose in meeting was to provide a way for all of us living beings to attain Buddhahood. Although I was not at that ceremony, on looking at the sutra, this is crystal clear. On the other hand, I may have been at the ceremony, but since I am a common mortal, it is beyond my power to know the past. There is no doubt, however, that in my present life I am the votary of the Lotus Sutra, and that in the future I will therefore reach the seat of enlightenment without fail. Judging the past from this point of view, I must have been at the ceremony in the air. There can be no discontinuity between the 3 existences of past, present, and future. Because I view things this way, I feel immeasurable delight, even though I am now an exile. Joy, as well as sorrow, moves us to tears. Tears express our feelings for both blessings and misfortunes. The 1,000 Arhats shed tears in memory of the Buddha, and in tears Bodhisattva Manjushri chanted Myoho Renge Kyo. From among those 1,000 Arhats, the Venerable Ananda replied in tears, quote, "This is what I heard," end quote. The tears of all the others fell, wetting their inkstones, and they wrote Myoho Renge Kyo, followed by "This is what I heard." I, Nichiren, now feel exactly as they did. I am now in exile because I spread the 5 and 7 characters of Myoho Renge Kyo. I will spread this teaching because this is what I heard. Shakyamuni Buddha and many treasures Buddha left Myoho Renge Kyo for the future and for all living beings in the country of Japan and the world. I cannot hold back my tears when I think of the great persecution confronting me now, or when I think of the joy of attaining Buddhahood in the future. Birds and crickets cry, but never shed tears. I, Nichiren, do not cry, but my tears flow ceaselessly. I shed my tears not for worldly affairs, but solely for the sake of the Lotus Sutra. So indeed, they must be tears of Amrita. The Nirvana Sutra states that while the tears one has shed in the past existences, as the death of one's parents, brothers, sisters, wives, children, and other relatives, surpass the quantity of water in the four great seas, one weeps not a drop for the Buddha's teachings. One becomes a votary of the Lotus Sutra by virtue of one's practice in past existences. It is karmic relationships that determine which among the many trees are made into images of the Buddha. It is also because of karma that some become statues of Buddhas of the provisional teachings. Now, all this last paragraph is a wind-up for what's coming next, because it's historic storytelling, unabashedly taken from Tendai teachings, which his interlocutor or his recipient of this letter is firmly aware of. In this letter, I have written my most important teachings. This is Nichiren. In this letter, I have written my most important teachings. Grasp their meaning firmly and make them a part of your life. Believe in the Gohonzon, the supreme object of devotion in all of Jambudvipa. Be sure to strengthen your resolute mind and conviction and receive the protection of Shakyamuni, many treasures, and the Buddhas of the 10 directions. Because who are they? What did he say earlier? They are you and I. Exert yourself in the 2 ways of practice and study. Practice and study. Practice and study over and over again. Without practice and study, there can be no Buddhism. This is Nichiren, this isn't me. You must not only persevere yourself, you must also teach others. Both practice and study arise from resolute mind and conviction. Teach others to the best of your ability, even if it is only a single sentence or phrase. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo, Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. With my deep respect, Nichiren, 17th day of the 5th month. And there's a postscript. And in the postscripts, the PS, he says, I wrote before about the doctrines that I have been handed down to me. Those I have revealed to you in this particular letter are very important. Is there not a wonderful and difficult to understand bond between us? Are you not the embodiment of one of the 4 bodhisattvas, including superior practices, who led the bodhisattvas of the earth equal in number to the sands of the 60,000 Ganges rivers? There must be some profound reason for our relationship. I have given you the teachings that concern myself. Nichiren may be one of the followers of the bodhisattvas of the earth, who are equal in number to the sands of the 60,000 Ganges rivers, for I have been chanting Namo Myoho Renge Kyo out of my desire to guide all the men and women in Japan. The sutra says, quote, among these bodhisattvas were 4 leaders. The first was called superior practices. These 4 bodhisattvas were the foremost leaders and guiding teachers, end quote. A bond of karma from the past has led you to become my disciple. By all means, keep this letter to yourself. I have herein committed to writing the doctrines of my own enlightenment. I will end here. Reply to Sarenbo. So Sarenbo must have sent him a letter for more clarification on the true aspect of all phenomena. And there you have it. So, sorry, I lost myself now. Boop, 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 boop. Okay, so, marker. So I think you can tell that Gosho was not a typical Gosho. there was a lot of scholarship and information in it, but he spent a lot less time talking about his justifications for what he says. He did quote Shakyamuni, he quoted the Lotus Sutra and others, and he referred to some expedient means. But by and large, this rather short Gosho is very much to the point, and he's obviously showing a tremendous amount of appreciation and respect for Sarenbo, who he now views as more than just a practitioner, or as he says, or as it's translated, disciple. I think he sees him as a co-teacher, their brotherhood, not unlike the leaders of the bodhisattvas of the earth, you and I, but that he's their equal, in that Nichiren's excited here. He's saying, this is, I'm sharing with you the essence of my own clarity, my own insights into my own personal path to Buddha, to my Buddha-ness, my own efforts of enlightenment. I'm sharing those key points that have awed me, and I'm showing them to you because I want you to understand what the depth of these teachings are really about. Be with me. Be enlightened. Share this path. Use this path. Keep it to yourself, because if you teach it broadly without being careful who you're talking to, people may think you're nuts. After all, you are exiled out here on Sato with me. They'll see you as an enemy of the state. They'll see you as somebody who's trying to seize power. They won't understand through the lens of Buddhist teachings what we're talking about here is individual enlightenment for all the, as he said, all the men and women of Japan. This is how I practice now. And this is how you must practice to accomplish not only your own enlightenment. See, he says that too. You must teach others. But keep this letter between us private, because people may not understand it. So why do I share it with you? Well, this was in the 13th century. We've evolved quite a lot since then in our capacity to understand. And I think when you read that, it's very clear. It's very clear what Myoho Renge Kyo is, what Buddha is, right? These people understood. But when we read these long discourses of the sutras and so forth, they're couched in so much storytelling to try to convince the laity, normal people, right? Try to get them to understand how their own minds work, what is in their way, what stumbles their life of potential, their happiness. You know, it's true to this day. It's an authoritarian thing that, you know, we might think authoritarians are people who just are egomaniacs who take over, but they're not. Those people, those egomaniacs who take over, are the result of authoritarian people who just are tired of thinking for themselves and just want to be told what to do. They have accepted that they are lower forms of life. And so to pick that kind of thinking up into believing, no, you don't have to be downtrodden, suffering, and all that. That's just, you're just a human being going through life. You're common right now as somebody who's not searching out his own supreme value, because it's there for all of us. It doesn't matter what caste or where you were born or how much money you have or any of that. Yes, those are aspects of suffering in samsara. Yes, no denying that. But you have the same access to Buddha-ness as the originator of this practice had, Shakyamuni. As I Nichiren, as I Sylvain, as Sarenbo, as anybody who hunkers down, studies, and practices chanting to this Gohonzon being your true aspect, Myoho Renge Kyo, your Buddha-ness. It's all different words for the same thing. And you can achieve it. But the first thing you have to get over is yourself. So all this storytelling and the history of everything, but certainly in Buddhism, is a way of convincing people who are, they're just not ready to get it. There's always a but. But that's good for him, or that's good for him. It's just like the 16th chapter, right? The lifespan of the Tathagata. It was like the final drop the mic moment. It said, look, it's not me. I'm not the Buddha. I've realized Buddha, my Buddha-ness, but it's the same Buddha-ness available to each and every one of you. And Nichiren is specifically saying this. He's saying, this is what I've gotten out of the teachings. This is my enlightenment. This is my clarity of insight. Think about that deeply, Sarenbo. And as you get it, as it comes to you, this is the way you must, this is the conviction, the resolve you must have in your helping and teaching others. That's what this letter is all about. So it's pretty exciting, pretty intimate. All right. So that's actually part 2. That's going to be it for this this Go Show. Please consider it, chant about it, comments. If you have if you want more intimate discussion than you feel you can have in brief comments on the YouTube channel, I encourage you to email me personally at tlksylvain@gmail.com. That email address is on my website, and so I think it's on this site as well. My podcast is available, as you'll see in the credits. Please use those to review and listen to as you drive in your car or whatever. Support if you can. You know, it's always the same old thing. It's that's my only means of support. So besides a little bit of Social Security, that's it. So anything you do is helpful, including just watching these videos. Deepen your practice. That elevates my life condition. So I thank you for that too. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. I'm going to let you go. Have a great holiday season. And we'll see you soon before New Year's Gongyo, right? All right. Take care.